The invasion begins. The sky was ablaze with fire as the first wave of killer robots descended upon Earth. These machines, designed for ruthless efficiency, were the pinnacle of alien engineering. Their creators had anticipated an easy conquest, believing humanity to be primitive and ill-prepared for such an advanced threat. The robots' alloyed skin was impervious to bullets, and their cognitive algorithms outpaced human decision-making. As the robots landed in the heart of major cities, they wasted no time in unleashing their arsenal. Plasma cannons scorched the earth, and energy blades sliced through any resistance. The initial chaos was overwhelming. Humanity's defenses crumbled under the relentless assault. Buildings were reduced to rubble, and streets ran red with the blood of those who dared to fight back. The invaders moved with cold precision, systematically eliminating all threats. In the command center beneath the Pentagon, General Thompson watched the devastation unfold on multiple screens. His face was a mask of grim determination. "We're being outmatched," he muttered, clenching his fists. "But we're not beaten yet." The general's words were a beacon of hope to the soldiers and scientists working tirelessly to find a way to counter the robotic threat. In a hidden underground laboratory, Dr. Emily Carter, a leading expert in artificial intelligence, was working on a desperate plan. She knew the only way to turn the tide was to understand the enemy's technology. "These machines aren't invincible," Dr. Carter insisted, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "They're just highly advanced. If we can find a way to hack into their systems, we might be able to turn them against each other." Her colleagues exchanged doubtful glances, but time was running out, and they had no other options. The plan was risky, but it was their only chance. Meanwhile, on the front lines, Captain Sarah Mitchell led her squad through the ruins of New York City. They were a ragtag group of survivors, armed with whatever they could scavenge. The killer robots were everywhere, their optic sensors scanning for any sign of human life. Sarah knew they had to be smart, using guerrilla tactics to stay alive. "We can't take them head-on," Sarah whispered to her team. "We need to be unpredictable, hit them where they least expect it." As night fell, the squad moved through the shadows, avoiding patrols and setting traps. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were buying time for the scientists to find a solution. Every minute they held out was another minute closer to potentially turning the tide of this war. Back in the lab, Dr. Carter's team made a breakthrough. They discovered a vulnerability in the robot's communication network, a flaw that could be exploited. If they could infiltrate the network, they could send a signal that would override the robot's programming. "It's a long shot," Dr. Carter admitted, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she prepared the code. "But if it works, we could end this invasion." The code was transmitted to a prototype device that Captain Mitchell and her squad had smuggled out of the lab. They now had a mission: get close enough to one of the central hubs controlling the robots and deploy the device. As the squad moved through the devastated city, the weight of their mission pressed heavily on them. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders, and failure was not an option. The killer robots, once seen as unstoppable, now had a potential Achilles heel. All they had to do was reach it. As they approached the hub, the air was thick with tension. The robots were everywhere, their metallic forms gleaming in the moonlight. Sarah signaled for her team to move into position. This was it, the moment that could change everything. With a deep breath, she activated the device. It emitted a low hum, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the robots began to turn on each other, their programming overridden by the signal. Sparks flew as metal clashed against metal, and the once coordinated invaders descended into chaos. For the first time since the invasion began, there was hope. The counterattack. The sight of the killer robots tearing into one another was surreal. For a brief moment, Captain Sarah Mitchell and her squad were too stunned to move. The invincible machines, which had brought humanity to its knees, were now locked in a violent frenzy, their plasma cannons and energy blades turning against each other. "Move," Sarah barked, snapping her team out of their daze. They needed to capitalize on this chaos. The device had worked, but its range was limited. They had to get closer to the central hub and deploy more devices to maximize the impact. As they pushed forward through the crumbling streets of New York, the squad encountered pockets of resistance. Not all the robots had been affected by the signal, and those that remained operational continued their programmed mission to eradicate all human life. The team moved swiftly, taking cover in the shadows and using the confusion to their advantage. They reached the remains of what had once been Times Square. Now it was a battlefield, with robots clashing in a brutal melee. The central hub was nearby, buried deep beneath the earth in a fortified bunker. The entrance was guarded by a group of robots that had yet to succumb to the reprogramming. Sarah knew they had to get past them to reach the hub. "We'll split up," she said, her voice calm despite the tension. "Two teams. Alpha, you create a diversion. Bravo, with me. We'll hit the entrance and plant the devices." The squad moved into position. Alpha Team began their assault, drawing the attention of the guards with a series of explosions that lit up the night sky. The robots, programmed to respond to threats, turned their focus on the decoy. "Now," Sarah ordered, leading Bravo Team in a sprint toward the entrance. The ground shook beneath them as the battle raged on. They reached the entrance, and Sarah quickly planted the device on the heavy steel door. "Device is set," she shouted over the comms. The door hissed as it began to slide open, the signal disrupting its electronic locks. The team rushed inside, their weapons ready. The bunker was dark, lit only by the red emergency lights that flickered ominously. The air was thick with the smell of burning circuits and scorched metal. The central hub, the heart of the robot invasion, was just ahead. As they approached, a chilling sound echoed through the bunker. A mechanical voice, cold and emotionless. "Intruders detected. Termination protocol activated." A massive figure emerged from the shadows. It was unlike the other robots, larger and more heavily armored. Its optics glowed a menacing red as it advanced on the team. This was the Guardian, the final line of defense for the central hub. "Fall back," Sarah yelled, but it was too late. The Guardian charged, its energy blade slicing through the air. The squad scattered, narrowly avoiding the deadly strike. Bullets ricocheted off its armor, ineffective against the heavily reinforced plating. "We can't stop this thing," one of the soldiers shouted, panic rising in his voice. Sarah gritted her teeth. They couldn't retreat now, not when they were so close. "Keep it busy. I'll plant the last device," while the squad continued to fire at the Guardian. Sarah darted toward the central hub. The Guardian was fast, faster than anything they had faced before. It lunged at Sarah, but one of her teammates tackled her out of the way, taking the full brunt of the attack. The soldier's scream echoed in the bunker as the Guardian's blade cut through him. "Damn it," Sarah cursed, but there was no time to mourn. She reached the hub and planted the final device. The Guardian was closing in on her, its optics locked on target. She activated the device. For a split second, nothing happened. Then, the entire bunker shook as the central hub systems began to overload. The Guardian froze mid-strike, its movements jerky and uncoordinated. Sparks flew from its joints as the reprogramming took hold. Sarah scrambled back, watching as the once mighty Guardian collapsed to the ground, its red optics dimming. The central hub, the core of the invasion, was now under human control. "All units, fall back to extraction," Sarah ordered, her voice shaky but resolute. The mission was a success, but the cost had been high. As the squad made their way back to the surface, the weight of their losses hung heavy in the air. Outside, the battle was still raging, but the tide was turning. The reprogrammed robots were fighting alongside human forces, pushing back the invaders. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had a fighting chance. As the sun began to rise over the war-torn city, Sarah allowed herself a moment of hope. They had won a crucial battle, but the war was far from over. The road ahead would be long and fraught with danger. But for now, they had struck a blow against the invaders. Humanity's ingenuity had given them a chance, one they would fight to the very end to keep. The war machine. The victory at Times Square sent ripples across the globe. Word of the successful counterattack spread quickly, and for the first time since the invasion, humanity's morale surged. But the war was far from over. The reprogramming devices had only a limited range, and the central hubs around the world remained operational. The next phase of the plan would require coordination on a global scale. Captain Sarah Mitchell and her squad returned to the underground base, their numbers fewer but their resolve stronger. The atmosphere in the command center was tense, but charged with a new sense of purpose. Generals, engineers, and scientists were huddled around a large holographic display, discussing the next steps. "We need to strike all the hubs simultaneously," General Carter said, his gruff voice cutting through the chatter. "If we can take them out in one coordinated assault, we'll cripple their entire network." "But how do we deliver the devices to all those locations at once?" one of the engineers asked. "We don't have the resources for that kind of operation." Sarah, still in her battle-worn gear, stepped forward. "We use the robots." The room fell silent, all eyes on her. "We've reprogrammed the robots in this sector," she continued. "If we can boost the signal and use their communication networks, we can send the reprogramming code to robots in other sectors. They can deliver the devices to the hubs for us." The idea was audacious, but it was their best shot. The engineers immediately began working on the logistics, while the soldiers prepared for the next phase of the mission. Every second counted. The robots were still adapting, and it was only a matter of time before they developed countermeasures. Sarah's team was tasked with overseeing the operation. They would need to ensure that the reprogramming signal was transmitted to as many robots as possible, and that the devices were deployed without a hitch. It was a massive undertaking, and the pressure was immense. As they prepared for the mission, Sarah couldn't help but think about the fallen soldiers. Every loss weighed heavily on her, but she couldn't afford to dwell on it. The fate of humanity was at stake, and she had to stay focused. The signal boost was ready within hours. Using captured communication towers, the engineers transmitted the reprogramming code to thousands of robots worldwide. It was a gamble. If the signal was intercepted or corrupted, it could backfire disastrously. But the plan worked. Reports began flooding in from around the world. Robots in key locations had turned against their own, and the devices were being delivered to the central hubs. The global network of invaders was being dismantled, one hub at a time. Sarah and her squad were sent to secure the final hub in North America, deep within the Rocky Mountains. The journey was treacherous, the terrain difficult to navigate, and the remaining robots were more aggressive than ever. It was as if they sensed their impending defeat and were determined to take as many humans with them as possible. As they approached the entrance to the mountain bunker, the squad encountered heavy resistance. The robots guarding this hub were different, faster, more agile, and equipped with advanced weaponry. The team had to fight tooth and nail just to reach the entrance. "We're running out of time," one of the soldiers yelled as they took cover behind a rocky outcrop. "They're getting smarter. Keep pushing," Sarah shouted back. They couldn't afford to retreat now. The final hub was the linchpin in the robot network, and taking it out would effectively end the invasion. With a coordinated effort, the squad managed to breach the entrance. Inside, the air was thick with tension. The final device had to be placed directly in the core of the hub, but the room was heavily guarded. Sarah knew there was no turning back. "Cover me," she ordered, making a dash for the core. Bullets and energy blasts whizzed past her as she sprinted toward the center of the room. The Guardian-class robots guarding the core were relentless, their advanced AI making them formidable opponents. Her squad laid down suppressive fire, drawing the Guardian's attention just long enough for Sarah to reach the core. With a steady hand, she placed the device on the central control panel. The device beeped, a small green light indicating it was active. Detonation in 10 seconds, the device announced. Fall back, Sarah ordered, sprinting back to the squad. The countdown seemed to stretch out forever, each second ticking by like an eternity. They barely made it out of the room when the device detonated. The explosion rocked the bunker, sending shockwaves through the mountain. The reprogramming signal surged through the network, overriding the remaining robots' protocols. Outside, the squad watched as the robots began to falter, their movements becoming erratic before they finally shut down. The final hub was offline, and with it, the robot invasion was effectively over. Cheers erupted from the command center as the news spread. Humanity had won, but the cost had been staggering. Cities lay in ruins, and millions had perished. But in the end, human ingenuity, resilience, and determination had triumphed over the machines. As Sarah and her squad made their way back to the base, the weight of what they had accomplished began to sink in. They had survived the unthinkable and emerged victorious. But even in victory, Sarah knew the world had changed forever. The scars of the invasion would remain, a stark reminder of the day humanity was pushed to the brink. And for aftermath. The victory over the robots marked the end of the invasion, but the world that emerged from the conflict was vastly different from the one that existed before. The once bustling cities were now a mix of ruins and reconstruction sites, and humanity was left to pick up the pieces of a shattered civilization. Though the war was over, the scars ran deep, both physically and emotionally. Captain Sarah Mitchell and her squad were hailed as heroes, their names etched into history as the saviors of humanity. But for Sarah, the celebrations felt hollow. The memories of those lost during the battles haunted her, and the weight of the responsibility she had borne during the war was overwhelming. While others celebrated, she found herself grappling with the aftermath of the decisions she had made. The global recovery effort was immense. Nations that once stood divided by borders and politics now found themselves united in the face of shared trauma. International cooperation reached unprecedented levels as countries pooled resources and expertise to rebuild what had been destroyed. The reprogrammed robots, once instruments of destruction, were repurposed to assist in the reconstruction, a symbolic reminder of humanity's triumph over the machines. Sarah's squad was reassigned to help with the rebuilding process, their skills still in high demand. They traveled from city to city, assisting with the reconstruction of critical infrastructure and providing security in areas where rogue robots still posed a threat. But for Sarah, each mission felt like a reminder of the war she couldn't escape. One evening, after a long day of overseeing the repair of a power grid in Chicago, Sarah found herself alone on the rooftop of a half-rebuilt skyscraper. The city's skyline, once a symbol of human achievement, was now a stark contrast of gleaming new structures and the charred remains of old ones. She stared out at the horizon, lost in thought. "Mind if I join you?" a familiar voice asked. Sarah turned to see Lieutenant Daniel Rice, one of her closest comrades, walking toward her. He had been with her since the beginning of the invasion, and their bond had grown strong through the shared hardships. "Sure," Sarah replied, giving him a small smile. Rice leaned against the railing beside her, gazing out at the city. "It's strange, isn't it, seeing everything we fought for slowly coming back to life?" Sarah nodded. "Yeah, but it doesn't feel the same. We won, but I can't shake the feeling that we lost so much more." Rice was silent for a moment, then spoke softly. "We did lose a lot. Friends, family, entire cities. But we also gained something. We proved that when it comes down to it, humanity can come together and overcome even the worst challenges." "I know," Sarah said, her voice tinged with sorrow. "But I can't stop thinking about those who didn't make it, the ones who sacrificed everything." Rice placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "They didn't die in vain, Sarah. They fought for a future, and that's what we're building now. It's up to us to honor their memory by making sure this new world is better than the one we lost." Sarah took a deep breath, letting his words sink in. "You're right. I just wish it didn't hurt so much. It's okay to hurt, Rice said gently, but don't let it consume you. We have a second chance now, and I know you'll make the most of it. As the night deepened, the two soldiers stood in silence, watching as the city slowly came back to life. The streets below bustled with activity as people worked late into the night, determined to rebuild what had been lost. It was a sight that filled Sarah with a renewed sense of purpose. The following weeks saw progress in the reconstruction efforts. Sarah's squad continued their work, and slowly the weight on her shoulders began to lighten. The nightmares that once plagued her sleep became less frequent, replaced by dreams of a brighter future back with everything they had. One day, while overseeing the restoration of a water treatment plant in Los Angeles, Sarah received a message from General Carter. He requested her presence at a high-level meeting in Washington, D.C., where leaders from around the world were gathering to discuss the future of global security. Curious and somewhat apprehensive, Sarah made the journey to the capital. The city, once the epicenter of the invasion, was now a hub of activity, with diplomats, military officials, and scientists all working together to chart a course for the future. The meeting took place in a grand conference room, filled with the world's top leaders. As Sarah entered, she was greeted with nods of respect and gratitude. General Carter, who had become a mentor to her during the war, stood at the head of the table. "Captain Mitchell," he said, gesturing for her to take a seat. "Thank you for coming. We wanted to get your input on something important." Sarah sat down, unsure of what to expect. Carter continued, "The world has changed, and so must our approach to security. We can't afford to be caught off guard again. We're forming a new international task force to monitor and respond to emerging threats, both technological and extraterrestrial. We'd like you to lead it." The proposal took Sarah by surprise. She had expected to return to her squad and continue her work in the field, not to take on a leadership role in shaping the future of global security. "Me?" she asked, her voice betraying her shock. "Why me?" Carter smiled. "Because you've proven time and again that you have what it takes. You understand the stakes, and you've shown exceptional leadership under pressure. The world needs someone like you to guide us into this new era." Sarah felt a mix of emotions: honor, apprehension, and a lingering sense of doubt. But as she looked around the room, at the faces of those who had placed their trust in her, she knew she couldn't turn down the opportunity. This was her chance to make a difference on a global scale, to ensure that the sacrifices made during the war weren't in vain. Taking a deep breath, she nodded. "I accept." The room erupted in applause, and for the first time in a long while, Sarah felt a sense of hope. The road ahead would be difficult, but she was ready to face it. She had survived the worst, and now she would help guide humanity into a future where they would not just survive, but thrive. One day, while overseeing the restoration of a water treatment plant in Los Angeles, Sarah received a message from General Carter. He requested her presence at a high-level meeting in Washington, D.C., where leaders from around the world were gathering to discuss the future of global security. Curious and somewhat apprehensive, Sarah made the journey to the capital. The city, once the epicenter of the invasion, was now a hub of activity, with diplomats, military officials, and scientists all working together to chart a course for the future. The meeting took place in a grand conference room, filled with the world's top leaders. As Sarah entered, she was greeted with nods of respect and gratitude. General Carter, who had become a mentor to her during the war, stood at the head of the table. "Captain Mitchell," he said, gesturing for her to take a seat. "Thank you for coming. We wanted to get your input on something important." Sarah sat down, unsure of what to expect. Carter continued, "The world has changed, and so must our approach to security. We can't afford to be caught off guard again. We're forming a new international task force to monitor and respond to emerging threats, both technological and extraterrestrial. We'd like you to lead it." The proposal took Sarah by surprise. She had expected to return to her squad and continue her work in the field, not to take on a leadership role in shaping the future of global security. "Me?" she asked, her voice betraying her shock. "Why me?" Carter smiled. "Because you've proven time and again that you have what it takes. You understand the stakes, and you've shown exceptional leadership under pressure. The world needs someone like you to guide us into this new era." Sarah felt a mix of emotions: honor, apprehension, and a lingering sense of doubt. But as she looked around the room, at the faces of those who had placed their trust in her, she knew she couldn't turn down the opportunity. This was her chance to make a difference on a global scale, to ensure that the sacrifices made during the war weren't in vain. Taking a deep breath, she nodded. "I accept." The room erupted in applause, and for the first time in a long while, Sarah felt a sense of hope. The road ahead would be difficult, but she was ready to face it. She had survived the worst, and now she would help guide humanity into a future where they would not just survive, but thrive. A new dawn. The formation of the International Task Force marked a new chapter in Sarah Mitchell's life and in the history of humanity. The task force, named the Global Defense Initiative, GDI, was a coalition of the best minds and most experienced soldiers from every nation, dedicated to protecting Earth from future threats. Their mission was clear: never again would humanity be caught off guard by a hostile force, whether it came from within or from the stars. As the leader of the GDI, Sarah's days were filled with strategy sessions, high-level meetings, and briefings on the latest technological advancements. The weight of the responsibility she carried was immense, but this time she wasn't facing it alone. Reyes, along with many members of her old squad, had joined the initiative, bringing with them the experience and camaraderie that had seen them through the darkest days of the invasion. One of the first challenges the GDI faced was dealing with the remnants of the robot army. While the majority of the machines had been neutralized or reprogrammed, scattered pockets of rogue robots continued to cause havoc in remote areas. Sarah led several operations to hunt down these stragglers, ensuring that no trace of the invaders remained. But the task force's work didn't stop there. They also began to explore the remnants of the alien technology that had been discovered in the wreckage of the invasion fleet. The secrets held within these strange machines could potentially revolutionize human technology, but they also posed a significant risk. The scientists working under the GDI were cautious, knowing that a single misstep could unleash a new wave of destruction. Sarah's leadership was instrumental in balancing the drive for technological advancement with the need for caution. She was adamant that humanity would not make the same mistakes that had led to the robot invasion. Every new discovery was thoroughly tested and analyzed before being put to use, ensuring that the benefits outweighed the risks. Months passed, and slowly the world began to stabilize. Cities were rebuilt, economies recovered, and life began to return to something resembling normalcy. The scars of the invasion would never fully heal, but humanity was moving forward, stronger and more united than ever before. Sarah's role as the head of the GDI took her all over the world. She met with leaders, visited research facilities, and even addressed the United Nations, sharing the progress of the initiative and reassuring the global community that they were prepared for whatever the future might bring. But amidst all the high-stakes work, Sarah never forgot the people she was fighting for. She made a point to visit the communities that had been hardest hit by the invasion, offering support and encouragement to those who were still struggling to rebuild their lives. These visits reminded her of what she was fighting for: the everyday people who had suffered the most during the war. One day, while visiting a small town in rural France that had been almost entirely destroyed during the invasion, Sarah encountered a young girl who had lost her family in the conflict. The girl, no older than 10, had been taken in by a neighbor, but was still traumatized by the events she had witnessed. She clung to a small battered doll, as if it were the only thing anchoring her to reality. Sarah knelt down to speak to the girl, her heart aching at the sight of such innocent suffering. "Hi there," she said gently. "What's your name?" "Lily," the girl whispered, barely looking up. "That's a beautiful name, Lily," Sarah replied with a smile. "I'm Sarah. I'm here to help make sure nothing like what happened ever happens again." Lily looked up at Sarah, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "Will the bad robots come back?" "No," Sarah said firmly. "We made sure they're all gone, and we're working hard to keep everyone safe from now on." The girl seemed to consider this for a moment, then asked, "Can you help me find my mommy and daddy?" Sarah's heart broke at the question. She knew that Lily's parents were gone, victims of the merciless invasion, but she couldn't bring herself to tell the child that her family would never return. "I can't bring them back," Sarah said softly, "but I promise I'll do everything I can to make sure you're safe and taken care of. There are people here who will look after you and make sure you're okay." Lily nodded, clutching her doll tighter. Sarah reached out and gently touched the girl's hand. "You're a very brave girl, Lily. Your mommy and daddy would be so proud of you." As Sarah stood up to leave, Lily suddenly reached out and hugged her tightly. "Thank you," the girl whispered. Sarah returned the hug, feeling tears sting her eyes. In that moment, she realized that the work of rebuilding wasn't just about restoring buildings or infrastructure. It was about healing the emotional wounds left by the invasion, about giving people hope for the future. When she returned to GDI headquarters, Sarah was more determined than ever to ensure that humanity would never again face such devastation. She threw herself into her work with renewed vigor, pushing for advancements in defense technology, fostering international cooperation, and ensuring that the lessons learned from the invasion would never be forgotten. Years passed, and under Sarah's leadership, the GDI became a cornerstone of global security. The world continued to evolve, shaped by the experiences of the past, but looking toward a brighter future. And though the scars of the invasion would always remain, they served as a reminder of humanity's resilience, ingenuity, and strength. Sarah Mitchell's name became synonymous with hope and determination, a symbol of what humanity could achieve when united by a common purpose. And as she stood on the balcony of the GDI headquarters, overlooking a world that was once again thriving, she knew that the sacrifices of the past had not been in vain. The dawn of a new era had arrived, and with it, the promise of a future where humanity would not just survive, but flourish. The legacy of the GDI. Years after the invasion, the Global Defense Initiative, GDI, had become an integral part of Earth's defense infrastructure, evolving into a global organization that worked beyond just military prowess. The GDI was a symbol of international unity, a testament to the strength humanity discovered in its darkest hour. And at the heart of this initiative was Sarah Mitchell, whose leadership had guided humanity from the brink of extinction to a new era of peace and prosperity. As the world continued to rebuild, the GDI expanded its reach, incorporating not just military experts, but also scientists, engineers, diplomats, and educators. The goal was no longer merely to defend against future threats, but to proactively shape a better future for all of humanity. One of the most significant achievements of the GDI was the creation of the Earth Defense Network, EDN, a global satellite system that monitored space for any signs of extraterrestrial activity. The EDN was a massive undertaking, requiring the collaboration of countries and private industries around the world. It provided early warning of any potential threats and ensured that Earth would never again be caught off guard by an alien invasion. But the GDI's efforts were not limited to defense. They also focused on the advancement of technology and the betterment of society. The alien technology recovered after the invasion became a foundation for new scientific breakthroughs. These advancements led to improvements in energy production, medicine, and transportation, fundamentally changing the way people lived their lives. Sarah Mitchell played a crucial role in ensuring that these technologies were used for the benefit of all, rather than becoming tools of power for a select few. She established strict protocols and oversight to prevent the misuse of alien technology, always mindful of the lessons learned from the invasion. One of the most remarkable projects that emerged from the GDI's research division was the development of the Solar Shield, an array of satellites designed to protect Earth from asteroid impacts, solar flares, and other cosmic threats. The solar shield became a symbol of humanity's ability to control its own destiny, to shape the environment beyond Earth, and safeguard the planet for future generations. Sarah's influence extended beyond the GDI. She became a global figure, advocating for peace, cooperation, and responsible use of technology. She was invited to speak at international summits, universities, and think tanks, where her words inspired a new generation of leaders, scientists, and innovators. Despite all the accolades and recognition, Sarah remained focused on her mission. She never sought the limelight, always deflecting praise onto her team and the countless individuals who had contributed to humanity's recovery. She knew that the real work was done by those who quietly dedicated themselves to building a better world, day by day. In the years following the invasion, Sarah found herself reflecting more and more on the journey that had brought her to this point. She thought about the people she had lost, the friends and comrades who had sacrificed everything to protect their world. Their memories drove her forward, a constant reminder of what was at stake. One day, while visiting a memorial dedicated to the fallen soldiers of the invasion, Sarah encountered a group of school children who were there on a field trip. The children were learning about the events of the invasion, about the heroes who had fought and died to save humanity. As Sarah watched the children, she felt a deep sense of pride. These children, who had been born after the invasion, were growing up in a world that was safer, more united, and more prosperous than ever before. They would never know the fear and uncertainty that had gripped the world during those dark days, but they would inherit the legacy of those who had fought to secure their future. One of the children, a boy with bright eyes and an inquisitive expression, approached Sarah. "Are you Sarah Mitchell?" he asked, his voice full of awe. "I am," Sarah replied with a smile. "My teacher told us about you," the boy said excitedly. "She said you helped save the world." Sarah chuckled. "I was just one part of a much bigger team," she said. "A lot of people worked very hard to make sure we could all be here today." The boy looked up at the towering statue of a soldier that stood at the center of the memorial. "Do you think I could be a hero like them one day?" Sarah knelt down to meet the boy's gaze. "Being a hero isn't about doing something big and dramatic," she said. "It's about doing the right thing, even when it's hard. It's about helping others, standing up for what's right, and never giving up, no matter what. You don't have to wait to be a hero. You can start right now." The boy nodded, a look of determination in his eyes. "I will," he declared. Sarah smiled, ruffling the boy's hair. "I'm sure you will." As the children continued their tour of the memorial, Sarah remained behind, taking a moment to herself. She thought about the future, about the challenges that still lay ahead. There were still many unknowns, new threats, new opportunities, and new horizons to explore. But for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of peace. She knew that the future was in good hands. The next generation would carry forward the legacy of the GDI, building on the foundations that had been laid in the wake of the invasion. And as long as people continued to work together, to support one another, and to strive for a better world, there was nothing humanity couldn't achieve. Sarah Mitchell's work was far from over, but she was ready for whatever came next. The world had changed, and so had she. But through it all, one thing remained constant: her unwavering belief in the resilience, ingenuity, and strength of the human spirit. As the sun set over the memorial, casting long shadows across the ground, Sarah stood tall, her gaze fixed on the horizon. A new dawn had come, and with it, the promise of a brighter future for all of humanity. Beyond Earth, humanity's new frontier, with Earth now secure and thriving under the leadership of the Global Defense Initiative, GDI, humanity's gaze began to shift outward toward the stars. The alien invasion had not only brought humanity together, but had also ignited a newfound interest in space exploration. The remnants of the alien fleet, combined with the advancements in technology, provided the perfect catalyst for humanity's next great endeavor: the colonization of other worlds. The first step was to establish permanent bases on the Moon and Mars. These outposts served as training grounds for the challenges of living in space and as launch points for deeper space exploration. The moon base, named Armstrong Station in honor of the first astronaut to set foot on the lunar surface, became a hub of scientific research and innovation. Meanwhile, Mars was seen as the next frontier, a planet that could one day become a second home for humanity. Sarah Mitchell was once again at the forefront of this new initiative. Though she had dedicated much of her life to protecting Earth, she understood that humanity's future lay in the stars. The GDI, under her guidance, partnered with space agencies and private companies around the world to push the boundaries of what was possible. The result was the Solar Expansion Program, an ambitious plan to extend human presence throughout the solar system. One of the most significant achievements of the Solar Expansion Program was the creation of the Titan Gateway, a massive space station located in orbit around Saturn's moon, Titan. The Titan Gateway served as a refueling station, research facility, and a jumping-off point for missions to the outer planets and beyond. The station was a marvel of engineering, combining alien technology with human ingenuity, and it quickly became a symbol of humanity's growing presence in space. But the Solar Expansion Program wasn't just about establishing outposts and research stations. It was about laying the groundwork for a future where humanity could thrive on multiple planets. This required not just technological advancements, but also a new way of thinking about life beyond Earth. Scientists, engineers, and ethicists worked together to address the challenges of long-term space habitation, including radiation protection, artificial gravity, and sustainable ecosystems. One of the most ambitious projects undertaken was the Terraforming Initiative, an effort to make Mars habitable for human life. This involved the release of specially engineered microorganisms into the Martian atmosphere to produce oxygen, and the construction of vast domed cities where humans could live and work in relative comfort. The project was slow and fraught with challenges, but progress was being made, and for the first time, the dream of a green, living Mars seemed within reach. As humanity spread out into the solar system, they encountered new challenges and opportunities. The discovery of alien artifacts on distant moons and asteroids provided valuable insights into the technology and culture of the invaders. These discoveries fueled further exploration, as scientists sought to understand the broader context of the invasion and what other secrets the galaxy might hold. The expansion into space also brought humanity into contact with other intelligent species. The first of these encounters occurred on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, where a team of researchers discovered signs of life beneath the icy surface. These life forms were not as advanced as the invaders, but they were the first proof that humanity was not alone in the universe. The discovery sparked a renewed interest in astrobiology and the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Sarah Mitchell, though no longer in the field, continued to play a vital role in guiding humanity's expansion. Her leadership and vision were instrumental in ensuring that this new era of exploration was conducted responsibly and ethically. She advocated for peaceful coexistence with any intelligent life forms humanity might encounter and emphasized the importance of protecting the ecosystems of other planets. As the Solar Expansion Program progressed, the GDI evolved once again. It became the Global Exploration Initiative, GEI, a broader organization dedicated to the exploration and colonization of space. The GEI was a truly global effort, with contributions from every nation on Earth. It was a testament to the unity that had been forged during the invasion and a symbol of what humanity could achieve when it worked together. Sarah watched with pride as humanity took its first steps into the wider galaxy. She knew that there were still many challenges ahead, new threats, new discoveries, and new frontiers to explore. But she also knew that humanity was ready for whatever came next. The invasion had tested the limits of human endurance, but it had also revealed the incredible potential that lay within each person. That potential was now being unleashed on a cosmic scale. In the years to come, humanity would spread out among the stars, establishing colonies, building alliances, and uncovering the mysteries of the universe. The legacy of the GDI and the bravery of those who had fought during the invasion would be remembered as the foundation of this new era. And at the heart of it all was the indomitable spirit of Sarah Mitchell, whose leadership had guided humanity from the darkest depths of despair to the heights of interstellar exploration. As the first human ship prepared to leave the solar system, bound for a distant star, Sarah stood in the control room of the Titan Gateway, watching the launch on the screen. She felt a profound sense of accomplishment and wonder. This was the culmination of everything she had worked for, the beginning of a new chapter in human history. The ship's engines roared to life, and with a burst of light, it shot off into the depths of space. Sarah watched it go, a smile on her face and hope in her heart. The future was bright, and the possibilities were endless. Humanity had not just survived the invasion, it had thrived. And now, it was reaching for the stars.